Welcome back to HGC, where currently we are one game away from Superstars, SpaceStation Gaming getting their first victory of Part 2. How long do you think that's going to take?
For you or for me?
For
both of us?
Both, yes.
I'm going to give it at least another week. You know, I don't think it would have been that bad. It's more of like because we haven't cast them yet. The more I cast them, the more SpaceStation comes to my mind. The same with Lag Force. But, you know, I'd probably give it one more week.
It's the double S's. It's what getting me, because I think SS, and then my brain just immediately is like, oh, here you go, let me help, it's Superstars, and that's what comes out, and it's not right.
I know. I think of that, or just the SS Hosty, rip in pieces. Best Jogal of Braxis holdouts ever seen.
We did have one yesterday, but I will admit, just wasn't quite the same as the SS Hosty. That will live on in infamy for us. Let's go to game number 3 now, between SpaceStation Gaming and Even in Death. Even in Death has chosen Sky Temple to make their stand.
Immediately, you know, Sky Temple has been a map that Even in Death has functioned rather well on into the past, one that they've been okay with once you drop away from some of the smaller maps. But when we consider the element of struggling into the early game, having a map that's easy to recover from the later stages, all of that's not so present in the choice into Sky Temple. So it's going to be very crucial, beyond all the points that I made before we went to commercial break, that they get in early game composition if they're going to hold their own.
Yeah, probably not wanting to bring back the Apather composition of Cursed Hollow. Go for something a little more familiar to them, but a little more aggressive earlier on. We've seen the double support Illidan comps work very well for them, and on Sky Temple, that's the one place where they're able to get a victory over SpaceStation, even in the Crucible. For a long time, this has been a favored battleground for them. They make some really cool decisions, even when they're behind, to allow them to come back into the game. We'll see what they're going to do here. SpaceStation, though, bans Uther.
Even in Death, what do they want to rid of? Tassadar is the choice, no surprise there, considering SpaceStation Gaming's on the other side of Sky Temple. That is a Task Tracer waiting to happen. There are 2 maps where Task Tracer is relevant. Sky Temple and BOE should be the very first 2 that you always think of those heroes. But it looks like SpaceStation is going to go ahead and walk away with the Greymane as their first pick. He's risen in power when looking at Europe post-international performance. He has risen a bit here in North America, but it does seem a little slower.
Although for SpaceStation, it seems like it is the #1 for them. And it's a little bit of, we're seeing a different type of build from him, that we are getting more the Honkono style that we saw at the Eastern Clash, back to more of the Worgen build. But also, it falls down to being sort of an Equinox hero and a Jason hero. Jason played him in the last game. So like Roll20 in the past, it is a flexible hero for this team.
Makes sense that Greymane kind of fell into that just because the diversity of him and the utility of having him across the board. Even in Death is going to commit to a Genji and a Dahaka here. The Genji does play into the strengths of not only the map, but again, what I feel like Even in Death is going to need to thrive. Still not totally convinced into the Dahaka, but I mean, it's not because Dahaka's a bad pick. You know, it's just, is this enough for them to really gain the upper hand on Sky?
But those are 2 picks that were pretty prioritized by Even in Death last part. So at least sticking with things that they have found success with before. SpaceStation now, do we get Tiger JK's Rhaegar here? They've already banned Uther, so if they want to make sure that they get their support before a potential support choke comes in, now would be the time.
With the Uther ban, I mean, I assume it's got to be 100%, right? It's just which one do you want for you? I'm going to just flat out say I'm probably the Rhaegar. I mean, it seems like the general North American consensus on what is the support priority goes, do I play double support? Because the answer is yes, then it's still Ariel Uther stand above all else. But if you don't commit to double support, my goodness, throwing everything everywhere, you in fact prioritize Rhaegar right behind Uther. Uther's sitting at the top for, I think, very understandable reasons. But Rhaegar, because he's the only secondary burst support, he still has Cleanse, one of the few with that still lasting. More importantly than anything, he has, and since his original formation, has been one of the strongest wave clear supports to exist. So he has a lot of diverse utility. Everything about him is still like just safe and solid still.
You talked a little bit about the flexibility of Greymane, and on our website, I believe there was an article that was released with Bakery talking about the flexibility that Greymane can provide. Just the different ways he can be built. We've talked about that, but even the ways that he can be played, the things that he brings to a team, things for like murking, wave clear sieging. He's got that burst damage versus warriors. He can constantly chuck out the cocktails. He just brings so much utility to a team.
I mean, he flat out has He can play auto attack centric. He can play percentile damage centric. He can do melee like mobility centric. He can go with just flat out being a poker with his flask build, which is the most common. He's got a single target burst reset as one of his heroic options, and the other one is being a percentile damage on a short cooldown. There is no case where Greymane is a bad choice, which is why he is so very popular. And, you know, it's no surprise, like at the top of the end of the drafts, we've always talked about you want to keep it as vague as possible, as little commit as little as possible while still being as effective when it comes to limiting your opponent while enabling your team.
Well, Falstad will be able to give some reset possibilities if Genji goes into Dragon Blade and situation is less than ideal for SpaceStation. We've got bans on a new Barak and Li Ming. Abathur once again, a double global, and Karzim for Hal.
All right, I'm going to throw it out. Are we ready?
Yes.
I mean, it's not that bad. Just so we see Abathur on Sky Temple. We talk about the power struggle of early game and the effect of Mule and what you need to make him try and have happen. That is already a very difficult thing to be able to run. We saw how hard it was on Cursed Hollow, whereas a map where Abathur doesn't have any map questions in terms of his power level overall. It is committed to a Genji, so I want to say, like, I feel like it's going to be a positive thing. They have Karzim, also early game skirmishing, probably outstanding compared to every other support there. Soft synergy with the Abathur. In all cases, that Dahaka is still kind of like a doesn't match the rest or drop away from the Abathur. I feel like these are, again, kind of matching that slow macro play on a map where you're not going to be able to get it, and more importantly, against an opponent who's just flat not letting you have early game at all.
Yeah, I'm wondering if maybe the difference having Karzim instead of Brightwing and then having Dahaka instead of Brightwing, so if they want a secondary soak, they're not committing their support to it this time around, might be able to make the difference for Even in Death. But it does seem troubling that this style has not been working so far for Even in Death versus SpaceStation. And now SpaceStation gets ETC. They have fantastic boss control between their heroes. We've already seen Casanova's ETC. They're going to round things out with Sonya.
Really like the Sonya here. I believe we've only seen 2 Sonyas in North America in all of phase number 2, and if so, it was very few and far between, and most likely on Infernal Shrines. This one, though, is very different than the rest, as it's a response to the Genji on the other side of the table, and really just all the melees with lack of hard crowd control. We know that this last pick is going to be a main warrior with hard crowd control, but it's still, everybody else lacks so much that she's going to be a huge problem that very few heroes are going to be able to deal with. I think it was a really creative adjustment for SpaceStation.
Yeah, SpaceStation always has the capabilities to flex into what they truly believe, especially for Equinox's hero. We look at all of the different heroes that he played throughout just the beginning, the first part of Phase 2, and it was quite a lot. And even though a lot of those maybe didn't have success, the fact that they are willing to think outside of the box always allows them to find those niche heroes that are going to work against what they have found, so they can be trying to figure out what really will be the bane of their opponent's existence in the drafts. And finally, Tyrael for Even in Death seems fitting. I don't know why, but something seems fitting for Even in Death to have Tyrael.
I just want to say that I adore what Even in Death is trying to do in these drafts. Like, they're making a lot of really cool plays. They have a double Genji now with a Karzim and a Tyrael Deathball composition. It's just that these are some of the hardest comps to run in the freaking world. Like, I mean, we're talking about some of the hardest synergistic compositions to run in the world, and I just feel like it's a little bit too much for them to be able to execute it. Because now it's even, not only do they have that raw team fighting that could be absolutely astounding, but they're relying to get to the 10s, which this comp does struggle into the early game. I feel like all the power spikes of this comp are all the weaknesses of Even in Death, and so it just feels kind of counterintuitive to their playstyle. Because I keep ragging on it, but I look at it, I'm like, oh man, that's busted. But I'm like, oh, but it's gonna struggle, and I'm like, but it's busted. Like, it's so weird in my head, and so I just want to get that across because their draft is really good. The Karzim maybe is the only thing I would put slightly out of place, or the Dahaka. But the Tyrael to get that team fight capabilities, as long as Sanks go down and Genji clones go well, it's just like, I assume they're going to lose all 3 forts faster than the Mule can keep them up.
Well, let's see if Falstad can stay alive through the double Genji Tyrael pressure, or if SpaceStation will close out the series right here with a 3-0. I loved your inner monologue. Thanks for just a little glimpse into that.
Yeah, you know, I'm sorry that I had to shed any kind of light because I promise you all that you do not want to be stuck in my brain with me.
You have 2 different locations based
Oh,
on it. You got to step back for this one and then go back in. And man, it's a tough life to be the Dreadnought.
It is. It's a dark world up in here. When it comes to talents, though, nobody's gotten wild. Everybody's sticking to the norm. I thought we'd see some Falstad. Maybe go into the Gathering Storm, since this is not traditionally a map where you can rely on the auto attack and soak of the minions. At the end of the day, Falstad is honestly a coin toss, though, for that level 1 talent. Not surprised. What are you wait a seconding?
Lutano playing Tyrael, but I forgot the last time that they played Tyrael, it was the same thing, and they flexed, which means a homicidal Genji. Generally, Genji is played by Lutano, and statistically has more success when played by that hero. But Battery now being on Dahaka, just change up. You know, nothing too serious or anything like that, just an interesting change-up that they've made in order to make sure that this type of composition will work. And so far, things are looking pretty good as they take out Talking Trees.
Being able to get trees there was actually a very huge victory, showing any signs of success in the early game is very relevant for even in death. But they got to keep it up. SpaceStation Gaming, I want to focus on whether or not they're going to run the 2-1-2 or the 1-1-3. Like in game number 1 against the Abathur composition. I wanted to say that a 2-1-2 makes more sense here than it did in game number 1, solely off the fact that the kill potential and dive capabilities of the members of Even in Death, which has already been displayed, are really good. And so whenever you're afraid of ganks, again, 2-1-2s are to stop problems. It's very good to have 2 people to make sure that single target can never go down. So it's just going to be important. Do they want to go with the 1-3-1, pressure the early game, or are they afraid of the kills? Right now, it's looking like they aren't afraid of the kills, because how? Cut out too far here. SpaceStation finds themselves a kill.
Jason dodges the drag from Battery. Dread, do you remember if Jason last game as Greymane played Wolfheart still?
He did play Wolfheart.
So now we know that there are 3 separate members of SpaceStation Gaming who are all committed to playing a Worgen form of Greymane. Is all of NA, are we about to see all of NA switch? Or do you think it's just this team approaching Greymane with a different mentality, more of a melee-centric hero?
I don't actually know. I want to say I think so. Hold on here. Can Battery make it out? Not looking like it. The passive mobility, barrel roll on in. Jason realizing that drag's still up. Smart to be able to step away. I want to say yes. But the reason I say no is just because NA has already shown, even when it comes to support picks and other main key roles, that they are not on the same page with one another, that they very much have our team thinks and then insert whatever statement immediately after. Right now, SpaceStations is filling that sentence with Worgen form Greymane and Wolfheart at level 1. But I think in terms of, is it strong enough to kind of overtake the entire scene? Yeah, it really is. It is a very powerful tool. It's just, when you pick him because of that diversity, you never want to count out, well, we can't go Flask build, right?
Right. When we talked to Honkono about this particular build, because he was running it so much in the first part of Phase 2, he said that even he respects and understands when he has to go into Flask build. So I don't want to see Flask build completely go away.
Oh, yeah.
But I do think that it's really cool that we're starting to bring this back. I think it's, frankly, it's more fun to cast. I love the Worgen build. I love the idea of Wiz and Duelist. I just want to make sure that we don't just don't consider the strength of Flask build at the same time.
I'm just glad that our North American players could bring back the talent build that you wanted and ignore all the builds that I want, you know? Because I'm still sitting
at home.
They know
who's more important.
I'm wondering where's my royal focus at, boys? I'm still sitting here wondering where I'm going to get that out of Leo. Even in Death looking to join in, stop the bleeding here up on bottom. A lot of pressure applied by SpaceStation Gaming. Very, par for the course considering the fact that they have the Abathur on their side. It's a bit earlier than norm. As we know, the first Shrine phase is going to spawn at 4:30, but the power slide damage, it's there. Man, this is now SpaceStation Gaming turn it up. Lutano barely able to make it out. Even Frozen X having to burrow away.
Their rotations were so good from the beginning. Their setup, focusing on the top temple when they'd already done damage to the towers, let them get the fort, which let them go back and get the bruisers. Now Falstad pushing them all the way up to the keep towers, and they could go through immediately, get their giants, push along with those. We haven't even had a second temple phase in the bottom. It's spawning in 10 seconds, and that fort is gonzo.
Gilly, I think the wording I used was I feel like they're going to take out the forts before the Mule can heal it up, and right now they've taken out 2 before Mule was even taken. It's not even like it can heal it up. Now, the bottom altar is up. There is now a 2-level deficit. Even in Death has to all in this fight and win it if they're going to be able to stall out this game. Otherwise, they will be doing the same thing where they second-guess themselves. Is this the best fight we're going to get? Is this the best one we're going to get? I'm going to let them know now, yes, this is the best fight in this game because they're too far behind structurally and in experience. Lutano's in a bad spot.
But they don't have clone yet. Dahaka's coming in. Power slide goes down. Lutano very low in health, has already fallen. How will be the next to go down as Talking Trees and Tiger JK go in for the kill. This is No Moon. This is a SpaceStation Gaming taking out 2. They've brought down Battery. They've got a 2-level lead over Even in Death.
What would you like to do, SpaceStation? Because with those members down and with that 2-level and more importantly, heroics coming back online for them, I mean, it really is from a shot caller's point of view, if you screenshot what you see right now and do all the variations of what you can make happen, you got about 20 and all of them mean this game is done. We have already won it unless we just get caught somehow miraculously. I would like to see at least a keep go down in this process. Keep in mind, in game 1, the keep fell at, I think it's like 7:10. Game 2 was 7:30. This one may have been before the 7-minute mark.
Lutano's had some pretty good Elder and Might jukes, and that one saved his life. But there's still a boss behind all this.
I want the front gate to be focused, a flight in, oh, that's out of position now. A flight into a gust, Mosh, just, I mean, all in force. There's no way Even in Death can defend this. But they're flanking. Rhaegar actually was getting pressure by Lutano, and we see Homicidal over there, but Tiger's just scooting on in, using that feral lunge. Deep down.
They get the keep.
They're
still here.
They're going. What do they have? They don't have Gus. The initiation's going to happen. Your battery's already going down.
Battery's dead. SpaceStation hanging out all together, bringing down members one at a time. They take out Lutano. Remember, the respawn timers are fairly short, but the boss is on the core. The shielding has not dropped. Tiger JK goes down.
The mosh pit's going to go down, and now Hal is the only man standing, 80% and counting. The core seems to be falling. Mule is dropped, but it doesn't matter. This is GG. SpaceStation Gaming taking the quick 3-0 in absolute dominant fashion over Even in Death.
Revenge, checkmark achieved. 3-0 over Even in Death. 6 minute 30 seconds.
Yeah, that one, they were just looking at me and they're like, Dread, that 7-minute keep, like, who cares? What about a 6-minute core? Have you ever thought about that? And the answer was no, I had not, SpaceStation. Thank you.
Well played.
I thought between, so like the reason why I thought they would actually hold off in that case is because they failed on the Gust, which was one of your best early game core like decision-making tools, right? Sanctification is a really good anti-core tool on the other side of the table. More importantly, if you fail that, there's a Mule. You're on Sky Temple with a 2-level lead. If you miss that, that is one of those cases where if you win it, you win the game. If you lose it, literally the only way you could have lost. I mean, it is actually on Sky Temple, because we always talk about the experience, the structure, and that big of disparity in both avenues. I just don't see the point of recovery outside of huge misplays. So I respect the bold confidence by SpaceStation Gaming and willing to take that last core call.
Yeah, and as I said at the beginning, or the end of game number 2, it makes me feel really happy to see SpaceStation have such a dominant victory and play so well, so concerted with each other, especially after their series versus Lag Force. There was a lot of anti-synergy between people like Jason and Casanova. There's a little bit Equinox and Casanova, a lot of the front line for the team. But I'm really happy to see that all their hard work, the boot camping, getting picked up by a sponsor, that they've been able to recover, and within one weekend too.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest thing for me is because it wasn't just like, and it's not just like they played a little bit better. That was a very different version, I feel like, than what we experienced from them versus Lag Force. So to be able to have that here and be such a positive sign is really good going forward.
We're waiting to hear from Talking Trees from SpaceStation Gaming. He played awesome, had a lot of different roles, being the Dahaka even in game number 2, so to switch up and allow Jason to play the Lunara. I'm interested to see what they think about their roles. But moving forward now, SpaceStation, that win puts them in the 5 wins club that we talked about.
Everybody's looking to have a part of the 5-win club party.
Yeah, they are. And it's really important for them to end this weekend on a win, especially after losing to Lag Force, because if they want to remain a contender for the playoffs for HGC finals, being able to get a win here and then start ramping up the momentum so that they're in a good place for that. But let's check in with Trees now. Talking Trees is here. Hey, Trees, congratulations. You guys had the victory over Even in Death, 3-0. That last game was very fast.
Yeah, it was they were all pretty fun games, but like the last game we're just like, wait a minute, we can core. Let's just let's just go home, dude.
Well, I wanted to talk to you about your loss versus Lag Force. Were you guys what was going on there? Were you preparing more for Even in Death, not really thinking that Lag Force would come in and play the way that they did, or was it just an off day for you guys?
So it was kind of like a mixture of like everything. It's just like our prep was like decent. Like we kind of didn't really follow like our strategies, like what we wanted to do. And then also like at this land center, we didn't come here. We went to a different one and we never been there before. So it was like a bunch of different stuff that kind of just like went wrong and we're just like, I don't know, it kind of sucks, but they played really well. So
They did. They were a surprise to us too, but we're really happy to see that you guys were able to put your best foot forward and get the 3-0 here and show all the work that you guys put in. Dred?
First of all, so you guys are currently still at your boot camp, is that correct?
yeah, we're still here.
How long are you guys
around?
How long are you guys continuing that?
I'm pretty sure that we're all gonna be flying out on Monday, and some of us on Tuesday.
Okay, so it's gonna be ended relatively soon.
Hey!
There. How's it going, Casanova? But my question is just got to be about the mentality, especially against Lag Force. I just want to hear a little bit more about it because I feel like you guys had a lot of hype, then a bit of struggle, then you go to the boot camp, you've got the new, branding going with SpaceStation Gaming. It seems like everything was going very well, and then suddenly the Lag Force situation kind of happened. So, like, did it get to you guys mentally beyond why it happened more? Did it feel like it was a setback?
Did it get to us? Not really. Like, we were all sad for, like, the entire day, but just, like, after that day, we're just like, all right, stop it. Like, we're done, move on, that's it. And, I mean, it worked out really well, and it's just, since we're all together, I mean, mentality is, like, a big thing here, so it's just, if one person's, like, not really talking that much, just, like, everyone's, like, always going to cheer him up.
You guys seem to be a lot more aggressive towards the early game, and when I got to speak to Equinox, he seemed to be pretty concentrated onto that. Is that something we can kind of expect from you guys for the rest of Part 2?
Yeah, as long as we don't int early level, like, and we play early game good, then we'll definitely be more aggressive. That's definitely what we are looking forward to.
All right, thank you for your time, Trees.
Well, Trees, one last question before shout-outs. Tempo Storm is up next for you guys. What are your thoughts on that matchup?
I think we should definitely, again, try to stick to our strategies, do everything that we want our way, play more aggro, like we said, and I think we can do really well.
Awesome. Well, good luck to you. Congratulations over your 3-0 today. And any words for fans at home? Shout-outs for your org?
Shout out definitely to SpaceStation Gaming. Sean Doris, thank you. Thanks for the boot camp. Thanks to Game Tyrant, Gamers Funk. Shout out to my entire team. Hi, Casa.
Hi, Casa.
Shout out to, I don't know, everyone. Hi, Mom.
I'm sure she would say hi if she could. Thank you, Trees, so much. Congrats again.
Thank you. Thank you.
SpaceStation getting a 3-0 over Even in Death. Little bit of a frustrating point for Even in Death now. Because Lag Force beat SpaceStation, that does set Even in Death behind somewhat when we start talking about the Crucible.
Yep. It's a pretty big setback. And for a team that was gaining so much momentum, it's it's a bittersweet in the sense that it's like, I almost enjoy the fact that it feels like they're hitting their first major HGC kind of bump in the road and like, who are we as a team? But at the same time, it makes me sad because they have shown the consistent development that it feels like it's maybe, the first wall and problem that they're going to have to identify and find a way to overcome. I don't know, the growth, but also the struggle. Both sides, I feel emotions.
Well, Dred, we're going to go to a commercial break in just a second, but actually, we're going to go to right now. But when we come back, we'll have our next series. That's Lag Force versus Superstars.
Down.
They get the keep.
They
They're
want the
still
core.
here.